A girl enters the building that is under construction and soon a boy sees her and says, "Hi lady, can I help you?" And she asks, "Can I speak to the person in charge of the work?" And he replied, "Okay, I'm going to call him," and then he shouts, "Eduardo? Come here, please." Eduardo approaches, and the boy tells him that the girl wanted to talk to him. Eduardo turns to the girl and asks what the lady needs. And she asks, "Are you responsible for the work?" Eduardo confirms and asks why. She replied, "Because I wanted to do some work at home and I wanted to hire your service," and he said, "Okay, I'll give you the contact," and she again asks, "Are you responsible for the work or the owner?" Eduardo tells her that the owners of the work are father and son and that their names are Aitor and Iago, and she says, "So I don't want to talk to you, I want to talk to the owner of the work." Eduardo said, "So I'll introduce myself to you, my name is Eduardo." The girl screams and says, "I don't want to talk to you, I want to talk to the developer I already said," and Eduardo agrees, and if she needed anything he would be in his office. The young man, who had received it at the beginning, asks what happened. "Is everything okay?" She replied with the utmost ignorance, "What was it?" "I don't want to talk to you, not your servant." The guy comes over and says, "You're the prettiest girl I've ever seen," and she says, "Look at me, and look at you. Do you really think you have a chance with me?" And he approaches and says that he will introduce himself. Then when he stretches out his hand, the girl screams, "Get out of here, you disgusting person. Don't touch me, you're dirty." And he said, "Calm down, I just wanted to be nice to you," and she tells him no, had asked for his kindness, and so he apologizes. The girl turns around and says that she won't be wasting her time with him and leaves. On the balcony of the building, the boy approaches again and says, "You're there, right?" She turns around and says, "You here again? What do you want, you bastard?" Again, he asks her to calm down and that he had only gone to her to find out her name, and she replied, "My name is Louise, but for you, it is Mrs. Louise." And then the boy repeats the girl's name and also introduces himself, saying that his name is Iago, and she says, "I already told you that for you, it's Lady Louise," and he said, "You're mad at, but let me tell you, I'm going to lunch in a little while, don't you want to have lunch with me?" Louise replied, "Look at me, and look at you, I would never go out with you," and he asks why. "What's the problem?" Louise replied, "The problem is you're dirty, and I'm not going out with you," and he said, "I'll buy lunch." Louise changes the subject and asks if he knew the developer, and he confirms. Louise then makes a proposal that if Iago presents it to the developer, she would have lunch with him, and he confirms and says that if that was the case, they would have an agreement then. Louise says, "I don't eat anything, I only eat good things, and I don't eat lunchbox either," and he asks, "What do you like?" She replied, "I like gourmet food, fine food, it's something that's not for your beak," and he said, "So just tell me what you want, I'll arrange it," and she tells him that she wasn't that hungry yet and that he could prepare a drink, and he confirms and leaves. Iago comes back with a bottle of water and hands it, saying, "Here, his drink." Louise throws water at Iago, and he asks, "Why did you do that, girl? Are you crazy?" She replied, "Why did I ask you to bring me a drink and you brought me water, and who knows where you got that water, because it doesn't even have a lid," and he said, "Here is a work, how do you want me to prepare a drink for you?" She turns around and says, "Turn around, we had a deal, but now I don't want to talk to you anymore," and he asks her to calm down and says she was very angry and that she should treat people better and that he was just trying to be nice to her, and she told me, "I already told you, you don't have to be nice to me, you're just bothering me." Iago says, "Are you hard on?" and she said, "Are you a masochist? Do you like being carved?" He said, "No, I'm just trying to be nice, but it's hard on." Louise approaches and pushes him, saying, "Get out of my way," and he asks her to calm down. Eduardo asks, "Where are you going with this? I'm not understanding you?" Iago replied, saying this girl is very angry, thinks of a difficult girl, and Eduardo asks, "Why don't you tell the truth right away? Don't say who you are?" Iago asked him to shut up and that he wanted to conquer her by race, not with money, and Eduardo said, "Haven't you noticed that she's a gold digger? What she wants is money, and she doesn't care about spinning tops, she wants to know about money, haven't you noticed yet?" Iago replied, "I don't think she's like that, I believe I can win her over without mentioning that I have money," and Eduardo again says he doesn't understand and that if the girl wants money, and he has it, just give her money, and wherever you want, come with it. Iago asks Eduardo to take it easy, and that he had a plan, and Eduardo warns him to see what you're going to do it. I don't want any trouble, because then your father keeps bugging me, and he says calm down mustache, I have a plan, relax, and Eduardo thinks he's going to fix it for my head. Again Iago goes after Louise, and when he covers her eyes, Louise screams, let go of me, are you crazy? Iago asks her to calm down and that he had a surprise for her, and again she repeats that she doesn't want to talk to him, and soon Iago shows that he had taken a bouquet of flowers. Louise said, how beautiful. And she throws the flowers on the floor and says I look dead to receive flowers? Iago questions her why that, and that all women liked flowers. Louise tells him that she's not just any woman and that she doesn't stay with just any kind of people, and he again says that he wasn't doing anything much, that he was just being kind to her, and she again reminds him that she doesn't care about him, that she wants to find out from the developer, and he again says he will introduce the developer, but she had to give him a chance. Louise says how boring you are, she keeps insisting. Iago said he would present, but if she didn't help he wouldn't be able to, and soon she agrees, and he asks what can I do to make you happy, and take all this stress away from you. Then Louise said I like chocolate, and he replied saying that's easy to get, I think I can get two, and Louise said I like expensive chocolate, fine stuff, but I don't think you can afford it, and he says they sell it nearby a very tasty sweet, and she said she didn't believe him anymore, and told him to go buy it soon, and he said I'll be right back. Iago comes back with a candy and shows it to Louise, and she replied saying that doesn't look expensive at all, and he said this is the most expensive one in the area and the tastiest too, trust me. Louise agrees and takes the candy, she bites and spits, and that it was horrible, that she only liked expensive candy, and he said that candy is delicious. You shouldn't have done that, and again Louise reminds him that he just kept bothering her, and Iago again says she is very angry and that she was very difficult to deal with, and he didn't know what else to do, and Louise replied saying I don't care, I want to hear from the developer, where is he? Iago replied, I'll introduce you then, and she asks is it serious? He replied yes, you can talk to him, now I'll go there and I'll be right back, and she asks you not to delay, see. Iago approaches Eduardo and says that he can't take it anymore, that he had already given up, and Eduardo replied saying I let you know, I'm glad you woke up to life, what happened? Iago says she just treats me badly, I can't take it anymore, and Eduardo told me I warned you that she only cares about money, but you don't listen to me, and Iago irritatedly tells me he's going to teach Louise a lesson, and Eduardo curiously asks what you're going to do. Iago only asked Eduardo to trust him, but first he would bother Louise a little more. Again Iago goes back to the balcony and says hi Louise, and she turns and says are you bothering me again? Have you done what I asked you? Iago replied he asked me for you to wait for him downstairs with Eduardo, because he is already arriving, and Louise confirms and leaves. Louise approaches Eduardo and tells her that Iago had asked her to wait for the owner of the work there, and she asks will he take a while? Eduardo warns that the boss is very punctual, he is not usually late, and Louise warns that she is very anxious to meet him. Soon Eduardo hears a noise and warns him I believe it is the noise of his car, and Louise runs to the gate. Upon seeing Iago, Louise wonders if that was really true. Where did you get this car? Iago replied saying this car is mine and I'm the owner of the work, and she says he doesn't believe that, and Eduardo says you can believe it, and Iago, who was already irritated with Louise, talks to her there's no talk, come on Eduardo, because I have an appointment, and Louise asks can I go along, did Iago respond together? I thought you didn't mix with people like me, and she apologizes, and that she didn't want to look easy, but that she was going to stay with him, and Eduardo says you had the opportunity of a lifetime and you missed it, and Iago says I know well the type you are, who judges a book by its cover, but my father taught me respect and that one should be kind to people, and that's how we met people, and Louise again apologizes and asks if they could leave. He says of course not, let's go Eduardo. Louise wonders what she had just done.